All right. So today we're going to dive into how websites work. So websites are the primary hub for nearly all online marketing. So it's important that you guys understand how they work, what goes into them. We offer website design services. So understanding the process that goes into it is really important. And just understanding the basics of it. So even if it's not something you personally work on, your team or your department, it's just good to know. So this is a explain it like I'm 15 level presentation. So instead of explain it like I'm 5, I'm going to treat you guys all like you're 15 because that's about your maturity level. So we're going to dive into how websites work. And there's a couple terms that you guys should know, need to know going into this presentation. So if you hear me reference a browser, this means the software that you use to view the internet and websites. I'm always surprised by how many people don't know what a browser is, even though they all use it every single day. So a browser is Chrome, Firefox, Edge, previously Internet Explorer. So that's called a browser. A domain name is the .com, .net, .gov, .whatever, the main website address you would type to get into the homepage of the website, or usually the domain will go to the homepage. Okay. The next word is URL, Universal Resource Locator, I believe. Basically, a URL is the full website address of a specific page. This usually contains the domain name, so the .com, and then slash, and then the directory, so whatever folder, and then the page name. So URL means the whole thing. So when somebody asks for a URL, they are not asking for your .com. They are asking for that full page address. So just be aware of that. A website is a collection of pages, and I'm going to go over like how websites are structured and built and all of that. So a website is a collection of pages referenced as a whole, and then a page is a specific page on a website. So just to define those things, everybody get that? All right. So components of a website. So to have a website publicly available, there are several components that are needed to make that happen. And we're going to dive into each of these in detail in this presentation so you guys understand that. But this is the overview. So in order to have a website, you're going to need a domain name, so your .com, and domain names are registered with a registrar. So know the difference, registered with a registrar, and I'll explain that in a bit. Website hosting is where your website files physically live on a computer, is website hosting. Website design is the visual creation of the look and feel of a website. Okay, so this is going to be your page layouts, your fonts, colors, content, text, images is your design. Website development is the actual building out of your website. It's the framework, architecture, and coding components of a website. All right, so we're going to dive into each of these. I'm going to explain how they work, all of it, so you guys can have that basic understanding. So first, domain names, okay? You don't technically have to have a domain name to have a website, but it sure makes things easier if you do, and they're like $12 a year, so it doesn't make sense not to have one. So domain names are the .com, .net, .org, address of your website. So .com stands for commercial. So originally when domain name structures were formed way back 80s, 90s, .com is for businesses. .net means network. So it was supposed to be for internal networks, also known as an intranet. Intranets were the internal website teams used to share company information, document stores, things like that. Intranet versus internet. So internet is public, intranet is internal inside of a company. So that was the reason for a .com and a .net. So you could have company name .com is where the public went, and then company name .net is where the team went. As .coms got bought up, people started using .net to get the name they wanted. So it kind of, that usage and structure kind of got lost. And a lot of companies now just use a subdomain. So you can see that there on the graphic. So a subdomain for their intranets. Just a little back history there. .org is meant for organizations and associations like nonprofits. Again, as the .coms and the .nets got bought up, people still wanted their name, so they started buying .orgs. So that, again, it used to be a way that you could verify that a company was a nonprofit if they had a .org. They were much more strict about who could get them back in the day, but nowadays anybody can buy them. So .gov is another restricted one, so only government entities can have a .gov. I believe it's US only, or mainly US. There's also country codes. So .us is USA, .ca is for Canada, .eu for Europe. Poor Colombia got .co, which again, as people ran out of .com, .net, and all of that, they started buying up the .co domain names thinking it meant company. So poor Colombia got screwed over in that one. So there's also now a whole bunch, as all these domain names got bought up, there needed to be new ones. So that's where they started releasing .info, .store, .ai. There's even a .sucks. So you can buy any anything now. So when people talk about a domain name, they are usually referring to that second level domain name, so the one in the pink. And so when somebody says a domain name, that's usually what they're referring to. There's components of a domain name, and the top level is going to be your .com, .net, .gov. So that's your top level domain. Then you have a second level domain, which is what most people think of when they say domain. And that's you get to choose whatever it is, whatever that word is. And then there's a subdomain. And a subdomain, you actually have full control over and can create as many subdomains as you want. Once you own that second level domain, you can build thousands of subdomains. And you'll see this in a lot of SaaS products where it's, member.company or, app.company. So you can create those different subdomains. And that's also where, if companies have intranets, they tend to live on a subdomain now. So, high level is a great example. So high level has app.highlevel.com. So that's one of their subdomains. It's where you log into their software. So whereas gohighlevel.com is the public website. So just to show examples of the difference there. So, all right, next. So when I talked about you don't have to have a domain name, okay, domain names make it easier to remember and type in a website address, because technically all websites have what's called an IP address, or point to an IP address. So instead of having to remember all these digits to go to a specific website, you have this word, and that's what registering a domain name is. It's registering that word, and that domain then has settings behind it, and I'll explain how this works. There's settings behind it that tell it where to go. So where are the website files stored, on what computer, and then to load those files. So domain names are basically like your street address on the internet. So, and the cool thing is you get to choose the street name, right? So when you register a domain name, you get to choose that street name. So that's what a domain name is. It itself is nothing. It's just a name. And we'll get into the meat of a website in a little bit. But okay, so registrar, remember that, you register a domain name at a registrar. So a registrar is GoDaddy, Namecheap, Ionos, all those are registrars. They are all regulated by an international organization that oversees all domain name registrations. Basically, you pay these companies to lock in your word so that nobody else can use it. So through your registrar is also where you update the settings that say where your domain name should point. So where do your website files live? And I'll explain that in the website hosting section, how that actually works. But basically your domain name fee is to lock in your domain word. Is this all making sense to you guys? Good.
Yep.
All right, cool. Okay. So once you have a domain name, you then want to point it somewhere, right? So you need a website to point it to. So the next is you're going to want to design your website. And website design is very different than website development. So website design is the look and feel of a website, the page layout, the colors, the styles, how your branding is expressed visually on your website. So that's website design. So the very first rule in website design is to get over yourself, because it's not about you. And this is the biggest hurdle to get over with clients is it's not about you. It's about your customer, and it's about potential customers. It's not about what you like or what you think should go where, okay? It's about what potential customers are looking for and what existing customers are looking for and what they need. And the whole entire point of a website for a business is to get them to buy from you. So what do they need that will get them to buy from you? And this is what your website objective is. And when I get into, like, when I work with clients on websites, it's okay, what is the overall objective of your website? And then what is the objective for each page within your website? And every single, we talk about this all the time. What do you want? So when you get into website design, it's not about you. It's about your customers and designing for your customers. So speaking of website objectives, so every single page on your website should have a singular objective. The only thing you want people to do on that specific page. And each page can have a different objective. So, but every page needs to have an objective so that you can design for it, so that you can write content for it, so that you can make it easy for people to complete that objective. So on that specific page, what do you want people to do? Okay, Critical question. What do you want? So what do you want people to do on that page? If recognizing that there are all types of websites, but this one specifically, if this is a med spa website, okay, what is the goal to have, your goal is to have people to do something, buy something, do whatever. So what's the goal on a med spa website? Okay. They're already interested. You know that the person viewing your website is already interested in whatever you're offering because they are at your website. They took an action to get there. So the next step is, how do we close this deal? How do we get them to take the next step? And on a med spa page, we're typically looking for them to book an appointment. Okay. So this is where page layout is so critical. And also why you'll notice a lot of website pages on the internet have similar components in a similar order, is because human behavior is actually very predictable. And when you get into human behavior and website design, you can guide people through the decision-making process. And this is where you talk about overcoming objections, convincing them, making them trust you, stuff like that, all goes into every single page of a website. Guiding each viewer down this path to complete the objective. Okay. So in the case of a med spa, you want website visitors to inquire about an appointment or to be able to book an appointment directly, right? That's the entire purpose of a med spa website, is to get that person into an appointment and get them to show up for that appointment. So on every single product and service page on a med spa website, you would design each page to convince that person that they want to book that appointment. So if this is a specific service page, you would have sections like about the service, what to expect, who's giving the treatment and what's their experience, right? So that's a trust building. What are the reviews on this treatment? Again, convincing them this is trustworthy, they want it, people who get it done love it. So that's where reviews come in. Next is going to be before and afters. So this is a what to expect. So, but seeing before and afters are so critical to convincing them that they want this service. How much does it cost? So some places choose to put prices on there, some don't. You can use it as a screening mechanism. So that you're not trying to convince people that they should pay for it. They already know how much it costs and know what to expect when they book that appointment and know what they're going to pay. So the other thing is to include any new patient specials. Okay, so what's that extra little nudge to get them to book that appointment is, maybe first treatment special. The next step is so critical and so many people leave it off. After you present all of that information, I'm thoroughly convinced as a viewer that I need this thing, that I want this treatment or this service. What action do I need to take in order to get it? And we talk about this rule about make the right thing easy. We apply this to our clients when working with them. You can apply it on page layout design. Make the right thing easy. And in this case, the right thing is to book that appointment. Okay. So completing the desired action of booking an appointment should be stupid easy. So add a button for book now on every single product service page. Okay. To top it off, we have a whole multi-generation of people that need to be told what to do and when to do it. This has been ingrained in their heads since they were children because parents told them what to do and when to do it. Schools and universities told every single student what to do and when they needed to do it. So we have a whole world full of people who are expecting to be told what to do and when to do it. So this is when you get into wording and making sure that your call to action is worded to tell people what to do, when to do it. So that's why you will see buttons worded, click here now, what to do, when to do it. Click here now to book your appointment. Okay. So tell people what to do, when to do it, because you're going to educate them, you're going to convince them, and then you're going to tell them what to do. And a lot of people, I hate to say it, but a lot of people are so mindless that just by telling them what to do and when to do it, they automatically do it because it's how they're trained. So this is where human behavior comes into design. And we talk about user interface and user experience, and those are all components of it. So educate them, convince them, make it easy to do the thing. Okay. So plan out every single page, because this is going to help. And I like to do it with wireframes. That's these graphics on the page here are called wireframes. I love to do wireframes because people love to nitpick and point out everything that's wrong. And by using wireframes to plan out each page, this removes any distractions of change that color. I don't like that word. I need a 15 pixel corner radius on that button, right? So you're not even getting into content or style or design or colors yet. All you want them to do is focus on, okay, what information and what layout do we want for each page of your website? And this helps to keep clients focused, because usually it's their first time going through this process. When people think of a website, they only think of the design phase. And they can't quite get their brains to process, like, hey, we need to, figure out what content is going on these pages, what order, all of that kind of stuff. And so this helps keep them focused by using wireframes to plan out each page. Okay. Once you have your wireframes, it then helps dictate your content. All marketing is content, and content is the entire reason for having a website. And for some reason, it's the most avoided piece of website design and website development, because people are, self-limiting beliefs. I'm not a writer. I don't know how to write. I don't know what to write, so that's where you get into this content. So the wireframes help plan out what content you're going to need. Now that you have those wireframes, you can then say, okay, I need 3 images for this section. I need 1 image, 1 headline, and 1 paragraph, right? So the wireframes help to dictate what content then needs to be developed. So text, images, videos, all of that. Thankfully, in this day and age, you can actually have ChatGPT help you. Again, keep your customer as your target audience, write it for your customer, develop it for your customer. It's so important to think from a customer's perspective. Okay, so what information would you want to know or see if you were shopping for this service? And that's going to help with the wireframes, and it's going to help with your content. So create content for potential customers and existing customers. Nobody else. Not your ego, not your friends, nobody else. They are not going to pay you. Customers pay you. Develop it for the people who are going to pay you, right? So many people get lost on that concept and they're like, oh, well, I sent this to my friend and my friend thinks this. Okay, is your friend a customer? No. Okay, then that's the wrong audience, right? So keep it focused on the customer. Next, we're going to get into branding. So your branding then, once you have your layout and once you have your content, your branding then determines the look and style of a website. So the colors, fonts, images, icons, this is where you need to stay consistent with your established brand. And this is also why brand style guides are so important, yet so few people have them. It establishes consistency, okay? And a consistent brand look and experience is critical for establishing trust and controlling public perception. If you are not consistent, people don't know what to expect. If you are consistent, people know what quality to expect and and what their experience will most likely be based on your branding. If you have a childish brand, they will expect a childish experience. If you have a polished, refined, luxurious brand, they will expect that as an experience. Okay. So McDonald's is an excellent example of this. McDonald's is what it is today because they're consistent. No matter where you go, people can rely on that experience and they know what to expect. Even if it's a poor quality, they know what they're going to get. So, same for your brand. You need to be consistent, and hopefully, you're going to portray a higher quality than McDonald's, right? Unless your brand is a lower quality, then I mean, go for it. But it's all about that consistent brand look and experience. So on your website, on your social media, in your office, everywhere, everything about this is all about controlling expectation and experience. Okay. Your website should be using consistent colors. And when I say consistent, I mean down to the headline, down to the button color, down to the fact that every time something is yellow, they know it's a link and that they can click on it. Okay. So that's how consistent you need to be in websites so that people learn how to interact with your brand. Using specific font colors, sizes, styles for headlines, right? So they know, oh, this is the start of a new article, or oh, this is just a subheading within the article I'm still reading. So these are all indicators subconsciously to the human of their experience. So this is where having a website style guide, and that's the image there is a website style guide from one of my other brands. So website style guide dictates what the buttons look like, when to use them, active. So in websites, they're interactive, right? What does the button look like when it's just sitting there? What does the button look like when I roll my mouse over it? What does it look like when I physically click on it? Okay, so that's your style guide is going to control all of those different variations of items on your website. It also is great to have if you have multiple people working on your website, they have a style guide to reference and say, okay, when the button gets clicked, I need it to do these things. So that consistently throughout your website, the buttons all act the same. This is great also if you change web developers, because then the next web developer will know, okay, I need to do all these things. Okay, so that's the importance of having that website style guide, especially on bigger projects, to have that created. So next is page design. So we've been working on all of the components of a website. Page design is when you bring it all together. So solidifying what each page will actually look like to the public. So your layout, your content, your style. You want to design every single page of your website up front before you ever head into development. This is where software like Figma comes in. It's great for that. So this is what you're gonna work with your designer to design every single page, and then you're gonna hand off these designs to a developer. Because I will tell you, developers make the worst designers ever, 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 ever. Do not ever trust a developer to make you a nice looking website. Okay. This is the biggest flaw that I see in the website design and development process is everybody just hops to development. And then they expect their developer to read their mind and just know what they want and actually have a sense of style. So this is where designers come in, and it's easier to work with a website designer first and then hand off to a developer to build it. If you work through each page design, you know exactly what you will be getting once the developer is done. Okay, and this is going to save you time, it's going to save you cost, and it's going to save a whole lot of frustration. Going straight to a developer never works, ever. I've been doing website design and development for 28 years. It never works. Having the separate designer developer, there are designer developers out there. They are 1 in a million unicorns. They are booked for 2 years and they don't have time for your dumbass. All right. So they're really hard to find, but just getting a good designer and a good developer is so easy. So make sure when you go through the design process, everything is exactly how you want it to be, because developers by nature are very precise. And I'll explain that in a little bit when we walk through the development section. But the developers are very precise because they have to be. So make sure, don't expect that, oh, I see something wrong on that design, but the developer will catch it. Nope, they won't. You got to tell them. So you got to fix it on the design before it ever goes to the developer. So keep that in mind. All right. So say we have all of our designs ready and we hand them off to the website developer. Okay, so we're now going to roll into the development phase. And the development phase is the actual building out of the website pages. And one of the components of that is architecture. So if ever you hear the words website architecture, it's planning out the physical structure of files and folders and how they will be organized. And this is more important on larger scale websites because then you get into databases, relational databases, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And you need to know the structure of domain.com/folder/folder/folder/folder/page, right? Or folder/page. So you need to know that structure and how that's going to work. Another critical component is naming conventions. So ensuring that pages and folders are named consistently. This also gets into SEO because on SEO focused websites, what you name those folders and pages will have an effect on how that URL, right? URL, the whole thing, how that URL ranks in search engines. So this is when even before you build out, you are already thinking about SEO and how you name the pages and folders and structure of your website and how it will affect your ranking on search engines. Okay. The next decision that needs to be made is framework. So when working on website projects, the word framework may come up. Frameworks are typically used to, it's going to define your front end development and your back end development. And it is also going to reference how your website is built and set up. And typically, you're only going to get into frameworks if you're working on larger websites with a lot of unique features and functionality. Okay. If you're working on a simple 5-page website, you're probably not going to be working with a framework. So you won't have to worry about it too much, but it's good to know what it means so that when you are talking to a web designer, web developer, or are involved in a project, you know what the word framework means. So a lot of my other companies all have giant websites. One of my websites has 20,000 pages on it, right? So in order to build a 20,000 page website, you use frameworks, and frameworks help. They're pre-built components. So a lot of websites will have member login. Okay, so instead of building it from scratch, if I use a framework, it's already going to have all those components built. So that's going to save me time. If you're going to have profiles and you're going to have commenting and replies and chat threads and whatnot, these are all fairly common features and functionality that people want to build into their websites. And so that's where frameworks come in. A lot of my other companies are all built using the Laravel framework. So in my situation, I based the selection of framework on the PHP language because I personally know several languages, and PHP happens to be one of the languages I know. And future proofing, I wanted my websites to be able to edit my own website. So even though I'm going to hire a team to design and develop them, I wanted to be able to, if I had to, go in and edit them if needed and work on them personally, right? So future proofing that I would know how to work on my own websites. Thankfully, I haven't had to. I have a fantastic development team, but I could dabble in it if I wanted to. So that's the whole point of a framework. So, and selecting a framework will be highly dependent on the features and functionality that you want, and a lot of it ties into if you're going to be using databases, what types of databases you want to utilize, where is all your data stored, how are you accessing it, things like that. So next is going to be content management systems. This is probably more up the alley of you guys. You guys are going to be interacting with content management systems. So a CMS. So a CMS is WordPress, Square, all of those, even high level. Their website builder is a CMS, content management system. Okay. So a lot of you guys have experience with WordPress. That's a CMS. You typically, CMSs are built so that non-technical people can edit a website. So you would have it built on the CMS of your choice. If you have experience with WordPress, always have your websites built on WordPress because you know it. Unless for some reason there's some technical features functionality that WordPress can't accommodate, then you would look at other systems. I, a lot of times on all of my projects, actually have a custom CMS built for my websites. So all of my websites, my tophorsetrails.com, my toptrailhorse.com, all of those have their own custom CMS built for them. And that was just a personal choice because there was a lot of custom features and functionality that I needed to be able to control that didn't fit into the box of WordPress. And so you can have custom CMS built. So just be aware of that. WordPress, the most common, it's the one you guys all know. Screenshot of it there. So that's what a CMS is if you hear the word. All right. Next, we're going to get into coding and website languages. There are, gosh, hundreds of languages. I think I know 7 languages. Code is the language of computers. It's very specific. It's going to tell the browser, right, the thing that you view websites in, it's going to tell your browser how to display the website files. And that screenshot at the top is a website file. Granted, it's a blank website page, but that is what a website file looks like. Okay, so it's going to explain, and in fact, this is a really good example. You guys can read that code. You can see where it says body, and there's a body tag at the top at line 10 and a body tag at 15. That's saying this is the visual content that you're going to display to people, okay? And then everything that you want to display to people goes in between those body tags. So that's where you can see where it says, hey, here's the start of the body and here's the end of the body. And then stop displaying anything outside of those 2 tags. So it's very specific. It will tell you where sections of a website start and where they end, what goes in between them. You will even get into formatting and styling and all of that. So there's a lot of different languages for different purposes. HTML, so hypertext markup language, is the standard website language used for most all websites. You then typically complement it with other languages if you need to do more advanced features and functionality, like building interactive features. HTML itself is non-interactive, but then you can insert PHP, Java, JavaScript, all of those things to then make it interactive. There are then also styling languages like CSS, so cascading style sheets. Your styling languages are going to control your fonts, your colors, your corner radiuses, all of your branding elements, and how they are applied to the page will be controlled through these styling languages. So so you have front end code and back end code, and that's what that purple graphic is showing. So front end code is for visual display of a website. Back end code is for features and functionality. And I'll explain, we're going to dive into front end and back end next. Okay. So front end development is mostly done via HTML, CSS. Front end development is when you build out the actual pages and what they look like. Okay. And then with CSS, that's where you control the look, style, colors, the pink buttons, the rounded corners, the font, all of that is through CSS. So HTML controls the page layout. CSS controls the styling. JavaScript is another form of front-end code, and this is helpful for like small features and functionality like pop-ups, okay? If I click this button, make this thing pop up. So that's like a JavaScript would do that. You'll hear me refer to features and functionalities, and these are 2 different things in website development. So features are usually things that you as a human will interact with on a website page. Functionality is what's going to go on in the background. And with the information that was produced, gathered, a form you filled out, what happens to the data, all of that kind of stuff is functionality. So what happens to that data? So on my Top Trail Horse website, so that screenshot right there, people can track their horseback rides with a GPS tracking software app on their phone. They then can load that tracking file via a form. They can upload it to the website. Okay, that's a feature that they can upload this. The functionality comes from the website then takes that data and says, oh, this was a 10-mile ride. It was done on this date between this start time and this end time. So I'm going to credit you 10 miles and 3 hours. The functionality is that it then takes that 10 miles and 3 hours and ranks them on a leaderboard compared to other riders and how many miles and how many hours they completed. Okay, so that's feature is them uploading the data. The functionality is what then takes it into a database and does stuff with it. So again, front-end development, back-end development. Front-end development is basically features. Back-end development is functionality. Okay. As you're building out these pages are actual files, and say we're developing locally. Locally means on your computer. So if I'm developing a website locally, it means I'm saving all the files to my computer. If I'm developing remotely, that means I'm putting them on another computer somewhere else. So locally versus remotely. So if I'm developing a website locally, I'm creating a file for every single page on a website. I'm creating a home page, creating an about page, a contact page, a page for every single product and service that I offer. So these are all files saved into a folder. Okay. How websites work is that in the building of those pages, you are going to say, hey, this little piece right here links to the about page, and all it's going to do is you write the code. So an anchor link, so you write the code to create a link, and it just opens that other file, right? So right there in that screenshot, the about page that's highlighted. If I'm on the home page and I open and I click the link to go to the about page, it's just going to open that file, and they're all living there in that same folder. Okay. So websites are just a bunch of documents that have links to each other. And so by opening one, you can then easily visually access all of the others. Does this make sense to you guys? The creation of the pages, the linking, the visual linking. Everybody got it? Okay, cool. The cool thing about coding is that it actually teaches self-responsibility, because if something goes wrong, it's 100% your fault. Coding is so specific, and you have to say something opens and something closes, here and here. And if you don't provide clear and correct instructions to the computer or to the browser, in this case, it won't work. And so that's where coding is really good at teaching you to be specific in your instructions. So if I said, hey, yes, basically what you write is what you get. Here's the opening of a button, but I never close the button. Everything I write after that open button tag is going to be a part of a massive button. Okay. So that's where you're learning to open it, close it, and have all these things. And that's how you control the design and style of these pages on here. So, all right, back-end development. As explained, back-end development is mostly about functionality. So what does the website do with your data? And so for most websites that we build here, it's mostly all front-end development because not a lot of med spas are going to have databases and login member areas and things like that. But if you were to get into a bigger project, like my Top Trail Horse project, these projects typically require databases to store information. So in the case of Top Trail Horse, we need a membership database, we have a ride database, we have a horse database, a trail database, and dozens of other databases that we use to create what you see on that page. And you need that to collect all of that data and then tell the website how to use that data and what to do with it. And in this case, like if we're doing a leaderboard, who has the most miles, check the highest number, rank them in order of highest number first. So that's all that data. It's taking all the data, compiling it, and then displaying it. So back-end development is where most of the really cool things you see on websites, that's where that is created. To do it requires knowing how to code and knowing how to code the specific functionality needed to do those things. So the other component is app development, right? So app development is a whole other form of back-end development of talking to a phone's software and a phone's browser and being able to tell them what to do with that data. So with Top Trail, we're developing both a website and an app. And back-end development is so that it's seamless. So no matter whether you interact with Top Trail on your browser, on your computer, or on your app, on your phone, all of the data gets fed into a central database and all of the functionality is the same on both. And so that requires two different expertise. I have an app developer working on apps and making sure that it is interactive correctly and functions correctly and all of that. And then I have a computer browser backend developer making sure a website functions correctly, both utilizing the same database. So we're not going to get too much more into back-end development, but just understand that that is a component of bigger sites. If ever you hear the word back-end development, it's not dirty. They're not, hitting on you. It's a reference to more technical, more in-depth, usually database-driven. So, all right, next, you built your website. Now what? Right? So this is where you designed it, you built all the pages, you have everything ready to go, you want to share it with the world, but how do you get it from your computer to the public so that everybody can see it? Okay, so how do you get those files out to the public? So this is where website hosting comes in. You don't have to have it, but you probably should. To make your website accessible to everybody in the world, you need to put it in a place that they can all access it any time of day, any day of the week, any day of the year. Okay. Technically, you could keep your personal computer on and point your domain name to go to your personal computer to that file. So that is an option. So that every time somebody types in .com, your website.com, it goes to your computer and opens that file. Okay. The problem is that as soon as you turn your computer off, your website is no longer accessible to the world. Okay. So the other thing is that you are now giving people access to your personal computer. And for security purposes, I do not recommend that, right? So that's why you could point it to your computer, but you don't want to. So you need to point it to another computer that's not your personal computer. This is where website hosting comes in. So you pay a company to keep their computer on 24/7, 365, and you store your website files on their computers, so that when somebody goes to your domain name, you point it to their computer address, and it goes to open your files on their computer. So millions of people have websites and need to store them on computers, and it takes a whole lot of computers to house these websites. Okay. So this is where data warehouses and data centers come in. They are quite literally warehouses full of thousands and thousands and thousands of computers where all of these websites live. The problem is that computers generate a lot of heat. And in order for a computer to run as fast as possible so that your website is not slow, and be aware, slow websites get dinged in search engine ranking. So where you store your website files physically also has an effect on your SEO ranking. So these computers need to stay cool so that they can run faster, so your website loads faster, so that you rank higher on Google. So a lot of these warehouses are actually built near water sources. So rivers, lakes, all of that. You'll see giant warehouses near water. And if you see that, that is typically a data center or a data warehouse. And they use that water to pipe it through the building and cool the building so that those computers stay running faster. Okay. These computers are built just to be storage. So they don't have monitors, they don't have mice, they don't have anything. There's no way to like interact with them. In fact, that third photo down, you have to plug in a monitor or something to it to be able to interact with that very specific tiny computer. And that last photo shows 7 computers on the left, the gray, the light gray. That's 7 computers right there. Okay, so each of those is a server, and there's thousands of them. You can see the racks and racks and racks of them in those other photos. So when you type in a domain name, that domain name is pointed to the IP address, and IP address being the identifier for that server in a warehouse. Okay, so your domain name is pointed to that specific address that goes to one of those tiny little servers in that giant warehouse. And when it does that, it opens the files that are stored on that little server and then displays your homepage. And that is what you're paying the $25 a month for. You're paying for space on a computer in a warehouse next to a lake is what you're paying for website hosting. So, all right. So working with client websites. So this goes back to our work here at MedspaBloom. So when we work with clients on their websites, we're going to go through the same process. We should be working through the design phase to determine layout, content, style. Once we have every single page designed, we can then hand off to our development team to then build it out. Okay. Once it's all built out, that's when we're ready to launch it to the public. So that's when we put those files on a server in a warehouse to go make them public. And we point that domain name, right? So going full circle back to the domain name we talked in the beginning, pointing that domain name to that server. So this is why at launch, there's all this buzz and back and forth about we need access to their registrar. We need login to their registrar so that we can update the domain settings to point it to the correct server in that warehouse. Okay, does this all make sense? You guys getting it? So once the files are live up on that server and we point that domain name to go to that server to open those files, right? That's what makes a website go live. The next step would then be to get into SEO, to make sure that your website that's now live gets listed on search engines. Okay. And that's where SEO comes in. Otherwise, your website is just an island with no roads to it. There's no way to get to it from other islands. And every single website is an island. Okay. And that's where SEO comes in, is you start building those roads, backlinks and cross links and all of that are these roads in to your website. And so by doing SEO, you create all of those roads in, and the more roads in, there's more ways for people to access your website and use it and utilize it and sign up as customers and all of that. So we're not going to get into SEO. I am going to teach a class next week that how SEO works, and we're going to talk about building all of those roads in to the website next. But for purposes of today, that is it. That is how websites work. Does this help you guys? Does the internet make more sense to you guys now? Do websites make more sense? Anybody want to learn how to code so you can build a website? Good.
This was really wow.
Did I
This
break
was
it
a lot,
down?
but this was
Break it.
really good, Micah.
All right, good.
I have a question though. Why do
Sure.
I see some sites drop the subdomain, and does it affect site visit or marketing?
Not really for the most part. Oh, so you can drop the subdomain. So that www was just a way to say that this is the main, this is going to take you to the homepage. That's what the www is for. When you use a subdomain, it's saying this is not going to go to the homepage. This is going to go somewhere else. So a lot of people, out of simplicity, just dropped using www because most people don't know what a subdomain is. And so it was just extra text to type. And so that's where you can give the, company name.com without the www. By default, 99.9% of all developers and people launching websites set it up that whether you go to www dot or don't type anything, that it will automatically go to the website. But you actually have to set that setting in the domain, the DNS settings, so the domain name service. So you have to set those settings, but it's by default, everybody does it. So is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, I was just curious because, like, again, some of the medspas doesn't even include that in their websites or in their links. So I was just curious if it actually affects anything.
Yeah, if they don't set that setting, it'll actually tell you, it'll give you a this website doesn't exist if that setting isn't set. And that's where, like, in the presentation, let me go back one screen. See there where it says CNAME www? That's where it's saying, hey, whether they type in www or not, right there, that www, if somebody does type in the www, it will take them to the correct website. So that's a proper setup. And then that at is a no, there's no prefix, there's no www. So you're saying with it or without it, it's all going to go to the same place.
I see. Sorry, just another
Sure.
question. Are top level domains editable now? Like, can you invent your own dot whatever?
I don't think the dot whatevers, but there are like 100 of them, hundreds of them. If you go to GoDaddy and type in any word, you'll see a ton of them. Like you could register meg.sucks. So there are the top level domain. Yeah, you guys, that's your thing for the weekend. You can all go register domain names of each other. So that's where like you can oh, the other thing I do recommend too is always lock in your name. So I own michaelin.com. I own michaelinkeza.com because I don't want somebody else who hates me to go register my name and then build a website about how much I suck, right? So that's another thing is we talked about personal brand. So protect your personal brand. So register yourname.com. And even if you don't put anything up, it prevents anybody else from doing that to you. So, but yeah.
Thanks, Mikey. It just gave me the devious idea of buying everyone's names here. But that's it. Thank you so
And
much.
then, so Ryu, you can go register them. It's called domain squatting. You can go register everybody's name and then sell it back to them for $1,000. You
It's just
register it for $10 and you go sell it for, yeah, there we go. Ryu is
oh
not
man,
sexy.
it keeps getting worse. Wait, look, my intrusive thoughts are like screaming at me right now. But thank you so much, Micah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so that's where you get into protect your brand, right? So protect your brand. Any other questions about websites?
Yes, Micah, I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, how did you come up or decide what color or logo design you should put on your website? Is this like based on the niche of your company?
Yeah, so typically your branding will come in. I as a person, like on my personal website, if you go to Michaelin or michaelinkeza.com or something, I think it's just plain text for my stuff, for my personal brand. But on a company website, it would be based on your branding. So hopefully before you even get to building a website, you as a company would work through branding to come up with your logo, your brand style guide, which would then define your website style guide. So there's a whole process to building a solid foundation for a company. And, naming your company is part of that, what you name your company, and then creating your logo with your company name in it. So those are all steps of establishing your company foundation. So, and then those would then dictate the logo design style on your website. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, yes. Thank you. I actually have like three more questions.
Sure, go
Don't
ahead. Yeah.
um, how did you set up the payment on your website that goes automatically to your preferred bank account? Because I checked MedspaBloom.com. I don't see anywhere where a client would like to make a payment, to be part of our company or to purchase the service that we are offering.
Yeah. Yeah, so a couple components to that question. So in regards to specifically the MedspaBloom website, there is this concept in technology called security by obscurity. And that is you don't build intentionally, do not build roads in to things that you don't want the public to have free access to. Security by obscurity. So with MedspaBloom, we don't want just anybody signing up, right? So we go through a free consultation to chat with them about their business, to make sure that they're the right fit for our company to work with them, that we can help them. Like we want to screen them before they just sign up. And so that's why the purchasing pages for MedspaBloom are available publicly, but they're not linked anywhere. So when I talked about your website is made up of pages that are all linked to each other, we just didn't include a link to that specific page. And so it's that security by obscurity where we then will send the link specifically to the people that passed our screening and we decided that they're a good client. So we'll send them that link. In the actual sign up process, is what's called an API. Have you guys heard that word API? Actually don't know what it means, but does anybody know what API is? No. Erwin, anything? So an API is a call. So we talked about databases. So an API is a interface. Okay, yeah. So it's an application. So okay, so that makes sense. So application. So it's one application talking to another application. So the way my Top Trail Horse website is set up is that anybody can sign up and pay me money, right? I don't care. I don't care who they are. They can go pay me money all they want. So the payment link on my Top Trail Horse stuff is freely available for anybody to click sign up. And it has a sign up form where they input their credit card information. And behind the scenes is an API call. So that means my database then talks to the Stripe database and sends credit card information to be run through Stripe to process that payment and deposit it into my account. So that's how online payments are typically built out, is using these API calls between systems. So your system and your payment system. Is that what you're asking about?
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
That's
my next question, if I'm a startup company, when do you think I should start using the back end development to show how many referrals I got from certain client or rankings about it?
So that's up to you. If you're going to do it yourself, if you're going to learn how to code and do it yourself, do it now. If you're going to have to pay somebody, it's going to be whenever you can afford it, and is it worth it? So
Okay.
is having that data, that back end development done, is it going to benefit you to run your company better, faster, manage clients, be more efficient, automate things? A lot of times when I have back end development done, it's because I want to automate something so that I don't have to do it manually. So that comes into, several of my companies are all passive income because I had them built that way so that I don't have to do anything. The system collects the new sign up, collects the money, processes the payment, sends them an email how to access their account, tells them what to do, gives them an interface to manage their account so they can upgrade their account or they can cancel their account. They don't have to message me and I don't have to do it manually. So it really comes down to time and money, right? Do you have the time to do it yourself, or the interest or the knowledge to do it yourself? Or do you have the money? Is it worth it? Do you need it? Is the decision making that would go into if you needed back-end development done or not.
Makes sense. Thank you, Micah. That's it.
Yeah,
Appreciate
sure. Anybody else? Website questions? And I'm always happy to chat. I've been in website development for 28 years. I started coding when I was 16. I had a friend teach me how to code, and I coded in Meg. I've been coding as long as you're alive. That's great. I started coding in Notepad, and that was back in '96, before there was any coding software, before there was any of the tools that we had these days. Coded in Notepad, wrote terrible code, broke things, had to fix it, had to figure it out, all of that. So I've been into web development for as old as Meg. So that's great. It ages me a lot.
Micah, I do have a question.
Sure.
So why do websites right now doesn't have login buttons? Many of them just always have to sign up, and it's always difficult for you to find the login buttons.
So what's this? Sorry, I think you broke up there. What's the specific question?
So for example, you go to a specific website, first I think it's Plus or other apps that we're using.
Okay.
So they no longer have login button, they always have like just sign up. So it's always difficult for you to find a way on how to log into your account, but it's easier for you to sign up a new account, you know.
Because they're more interested in generating new revenue than existing revenue. So that's where you get into user experience. So you guys have probably heard me use the terms user interface and user experience. And these are two different things. User interface is what it looks like. User experience is how you as a human interact with it. And if it's hard for you, I talked about making the right thing easy, right? So they got more focused on user experience of new people signing up, more so than they were concerned about existing customers being able to log in. So that's keeping in mind your different audiences. So when you get into website design, making sure you take into consideration the different audiences that are going to be using your website, and making sure that their experience, their user experience with your website is enjoyable. So with cost, if they only have a sign up button but not a login button, that's a poor user experience for existing customers. And so that's where, and a lot of times, like with Kloss, like I have it bookmarked, so I don't need to go to their homepage to click the login button, because when I went there the first time, I just hit bookmark, and that's how I get to it over and over and over. So that's also another consideration, is how people are getting there, how they're engaging, things like that. Does that make sense? Is that what you're asking about?
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Poor user experience.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right, cool. I'm going to call it. Thanks everybody for joining me on a Friday. I hope you got something out of this. And I hope you understand website